Hey, welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. Scott Linden here. Glad you could join me as we continue our journey through the past hunting season. Yeah, I've got a couple good friends joining me this week to kind of give us a summary of the highs and the lows, the fun stuff, and the interesting things they saw and did during their hunting season. Maybe it'll give you a little bit of encouragement for the coming season or something. That's all coming up right here. We've got more in store for you as well, though. You can win that pair of Pyke Gear Dakota pants just by entering the Fur Feathers Friends Word of the Week contest from Pointer Shotguns. And then in our Fix It segment, well, we're going to talk about something, I guess I'll call it a housekeeping item, electronic housekeeping, as we look ahead to next season and look back to last season. So apropos of our discussion with two good guests during the program. All of it made possible by Pointer Shotguns, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes Tubes, MidwayUSA.com, and Purina Pro Plan Sport dog food. Well, I alluded to it last week, and I'm going to allude to it again because it is, I don't know what else to call it except the busiest time of year if you're a magazine writer. This is when all the assignments have been made for much of the year. I get a lot of them later. Some of the editors know I can deliver pretty quickly, but right now, doing a lot of research and a lot of writing for just about everybody. In fact, I think I mentioned the new United Kennel Club American Field magazine for all of us that is kicking off. You'll see my byline there, and that's kind of fun. Good to be back working with Chris Ingren there. But also Gundog, Upland Almanac. Hey, Sporting Classics. Got one going out real soon for them. Pointing Dog Journal. And then if you don't know it yet, you probably ought to get to know Game and Fish magazine. All sorts of alumni from the good old days at Field and Stream working there, and great to talk with them once in a while and send in a few articles here and there. So it's all about writing here and over there. I thought it'd be interesting and, enlightening, and sure enough, it turned out to be exactly that on the social media to ask the proverbial question: did you hunt walk-in ground this season? And the answers, I think, are more than just yes and no, and you might enjoy them. First, George Cummins, always love your pictures. They're great photos. Samson, you're looking great, my friend. That's the Weimaraner in the foreground. Thanks for the picture, George. Hope all is well out there. Michael Salamone, we'll be talking more very soon. In Wyoming and Colorado hunting walking ground, upland and waterfowl. And hoping funding for their walk-in programs doesn't get cut. I don't know if it would or not. I've just not seen that. So if that's a worry for somebody, probably ought to reach out to the local agency and find out what's going on there, Michael. Lynn Glock hunts walking ground because it's 100 yards from my house. Yeah, love that. How convenient. And you can go 4 miles before you have to turn around. And just to make us even more jealous, Lynn gets roosters, sharpies, and huns there. Send me the latitude and longitude, Lynn. Yeah, Bruce Wondrek travels from Missouri all the way to North Dakota to hunt on what they call plots ground over there. And, vis-a-vis a recent discussion I had with somebody, they are ample, accessible, good cover, and usually produce birds. That's why a lot of people come from the East to the Midwest and the West, and I get it. Jeffrey Kimura is on BLM walk-in ground. And Joe Rundell hunts grouse on a special kind of program over there. They call it the Grouse Enhancement Management Sites. Walk only, cooperative between the Rough Grouse Society and the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. Yeah, wonderful project. And in fact, if I think about it long enough, I think I walked on some of those a while back. It was a lot of fun. Interesting concept. And also some of those, I think, or similar ones up there, are also great snowmobiling in the wintertime. Yeah, there's paths, whatever you call those things, when you can ride a snowmobile on them, which are helpful when you're walking in the woods on a grouse hunt as well. Yeah. Well, thanks for all your comments and participation. I'm glad to see that happening. And of course, want to see more of that happening next season. That is your assignment. I expect all of you to comply. That part of the show brought to you by Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School. Dave Fiedler is the gun guru. Start with him when you're shopping, whether it's a hunting gun or a target gun, but Dave does both, which is why his input might be so valuable to you. And he will take your call. Just tell him you're a listener to the Upland Nation podcast. He'll answer your questions about the right kind of gun for you, from caliber to configuration. And then if you are looking for one of those hard-to-find models, he's got a line on them. Go to midvalleyclays.com. Get the phone number. Call Dave Fiedler, midvalleyclays.com. And Pro Plan Sport Performance dog food is what I'm feeding Flick. He seems to love it, and it keeps him in condition, and that's what's important around here. It's nutrient dense. So there's not a lot of waste ending up in the yard that you have to pick up. You get what I mean? 30% protein, 20% fat, the perfect combination, the right balance, and it tastes pretty good and is high in calories. That's how you fuel your dog's energy throughout the season, and I can attest to that. Learn more about all the formulations for Pro Plan Sport at ProPlansport.com. You know, this is really just an excuse to get caught up with all my friends. I never get to see them during the season, and unfortunately not a lot of chances to see him after the season unless I call like this. Joining me to debrief his bird season, and I can guarantee you it will be different in one or more ways than yours, is Michael Salamone. Michael, where are you today? I always try to figure out where you might be hiding, but this time of year you're probably close to home.
Yeah, I am. I'm in Avon, Colorado right now, just a few miles, about maybe 15, 20 miles away from my home in Eagle.
Okay. And you've got kind of a schizophrenic professional personality. And I mean that in the best of ways. You're an Orvis-endorsed fly fishing guide. And by the way, doing all sorts of great stuff on the nonprofit side with everybody from Wounded Warriors to Cast for the Cure, I think, some of those. Tell me, just give us a little bit of your backstory.
A lot of my background probably revolves more around the fly fishing industry. But the presence that I've had for upland hunting and waterfowl hunting is starting to grow more and more. As a published writer for the outdoors, I've had articles that have appeared in hunting and fishing magazines. Yeah.
In fact, that reminds me. I'll talk about that off mic. Never mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did ask off mic about your fishing season. It sounds like it was a pretty good one. Where are you doing most of that?
The majority of my fishing is centered around the Eagle River and the Colorado River. We do floats and wade trips regularly on those bodies of water, but those are the two that I spend a predominant amount of time on. And usually if you're going to be more specific, it's probably the upper Colorado River.
Yeah, nice. Beautiful country up there, and wish I could spend more time in that part of the country. Your hunting though is a little bit different than most of us in that you stick around the Rockies to a great degree, don't you?
I try to revel in some of those birds that I find right here that are in my backyard. And it's turned out to be, quite a benefit for me. I don't find the numbers of people that are chasing them. The birds I'm predominantly chasing are what they call dusky grouse, which used to be referred to as blue grouse. And the numbers this year for the grouse were some of the best I've seen in probably 25 years of keeping a journal.
Wow. So what do you attribute that? Is it a weather thing, or is it more than just weather?
Springtime can be hit and miss for if we have a late cold and there have already been clutches that have been dropped. We can have trouble with that. Or if we have a bad freeze that's late and it kind of diminishes the food supply, like a lot of the berries, we can have something like that could be a negative effect. But last year, the stars all aligned up, the food, the clutches, everything was just fantastic. And the numbers of birds that I found on public land were phenomenal.
Well, good for you. And especially an obscure species like that. You're hunting them with what these days? What kind of dog have you got with you?
I have a yellow lab, and she's a really versatile breed. I hunt her upland for grouse and for pheasants, and then I double up and I do a lot of waterfowl with her as well. But the two gentlemen that I hunt with predominantly, we're all dedicated bird hunters, and the other gentleman has a yellow lab, and then the third gentleman has a German short hair. And we do hunt all these dogs together. It's just one of the things that we've always done. I've hunted usually 2 labs and 1 German short hair.
And how does it, as Dr. Phil used to say, how's that working for you?
We're all buddies, and we all have hunted together so long. The dogs will hunt with each other, and the Rocky Mountains are big country. We could get separated by terrain. So we have to be able to if one dog's near us and it's not my dog, I still have to be able to kind of take control of it and know the commands and just kind of hunt. And it's been really good. We don't really have any trouble other than when they want to get in the back seat altogether.
yeah, I could relate. We, for many years we'd put a 90-pound lab and a 60-pound wire hair in the back seat, and that was about all it could handle. So
yeah. The German short hair likes to be a little bit of grumpy, but that's just when we're all getting in the back seat and then everybody's friend.
That's hilarious. I love it. Oh, that's great. Well, why don't you describe, and I'm going to be a little selfish because duskies are one of those birds that we have out here in maybe the same kind of country. And I really do need to start developing a little bit of experience in that area for all the same reasons maybe you did. We can start the season earlier. Nobody hunts them. And,
no.
And it's a great way to get the dog tuned up a little bit more.
100%, Scott. About the only thing we ever really have to worry about is my lab is a bigger lab, and you've got to watch that warm weather on the early season. So we often will go hunt short, and kind of just go early in the morning when it's still nice and cool. But we also find that we're getting good scenting conditions for the dogs. They seem to know what's going on then. But we're hunting pretty high. I mean, a lot of times, we're 10,500 feet.
Well, you can do that over there. Ours aren't quite that high, but no. out here, the few folks who do it will tell you that you got to get up to about 6,000. So let's just put ourselves, a mile high, maybe more.
Yeah.
Could you describe some of the habitat for the duskies?
Yeah, we're looking kind of for a mixed interface where the sage and the aspens kind of blend in together.
Oh.
A lot of that early season, we'll find the especially the family broods, the females and the younger ones from the year, will be out chasing grasshoppers as long as they can.
Sure.
That's a very prevalent food source. As those grasshoppers start to disappear when things get cold, they start to reconcentrate on berries. And then, late season, you're going to be chasing them up on the ridge where they're, eating pine needles.
Okay.
But that's predominantly more the males, the big boys. They might hang out a few together, but a lot of times they're solitary birds.
What kind of are they? When you're finding them, are they on the ground? Is the short hair actually doing some pointing, or what? Really? Okay.
Yeah. For years, I hunted. I had 2 dogs for years. I had a Brittany and a yellow lab, and they worked very well. The Brittany would point, and the lab would flush and then retrieve, downed birds as well. So I kind of had the best of both worlds for that time. But yeah, we do get a tremendous amount of points, and even with the labs, once they start getting around birds, you can recognize that
Sure.
birdie set. Yeah. They kind of change. You can hear them smelling a little differently. You can see their tail doing a little bit of a different action. And we all kind of recognize that in each other's dogs. So that's kind of, a touching point for us to be able to hunt over each other's dogs. I definitely enjoy that.
Yeah, that only comes from watching the dogs carefully, and it's, of course, one of the things we could all stand to do more of. I want to talk specifically about your bird season. If you had to rank it, from 1 being really bad to 10 being once in a lifetime season, where would you put last season for you?
Well, it was probably a 9.
Wow.
The numbers of birds for dusky grouse probably have been the best I've seen in 20 years. I keep a journal of all the hunts that I do, upland and waterfowl, and I can look back at numbers and not see days and numbers where we're moving as many birds.
Yeah.
Or the flushes are not as high. This year, one of the key highlights this year is one of the closest buddies that I hunt with. There's 3 of us. The gentleman has the other yellow lab. His son had gotten his hunter education card.
Okay.
And it was time for him to join us. And I got to watch his son shoot his first grouse. And, we talk about not having those tailgate kind of body count days. We had one day where we got to line the grouse up. And it was special. The numbers were high. We had 4 hunters with that new young son being in the field with us, and it turned out to be something I'm not going to forget for a long time.
Well, there's nothing like getting somebody else involved in this world. We're all doing it in our own ways, and everybody I ask, when they get to a certain point in their bird hunting career, if you want to call it that, their focus shifts from killing a bunch of birds to helping somebody else kill a bunch of birds.
Yep. Sometimes my buddies think I'm a little too free with information, because I'd like to see people have success, to be honest.
Yeah, you got to look beyond the obvious, and more power to you. Go ahead.
But something that was a little bit different that I started 2 years ago is I started going up to Wyoming.
Yeah.
To hunt pheasants.
Which of course most people will say, what? Wyoming and pheasants?
And Scott, I'm working on a piece, and the title is Wyoming with a question mark. Okay? Because everybody I would talk to would be like, Wyoming? And it was a question mark at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, Wyoming. They have done a program up there where they are putting birds out to try to attract hunters.
Yeah.
And the experience I had this year for opening day was unbelievable. The opening weekend was fantastic. The hunts were great. The people were phenomenal. I had unbelievable food, and it was so cheap. Yeah. It was such an inexpensive adventure for me. I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, in fact, I didn't steal that story idea from you, but I did mention that my first experience in Wyoming was chukars. And I thought the same thing, but we had a great chucker hunt. There was huns in there as well, and then sure enough, we went down and chased those ringnecks.
Now, did you have any trouble with, because it's something that I don't deal with here in Colorado, and when I go up there, I have to put it in my mindset.
Yeah.
Do you have any trouble with snakes where you were?
It was so cold that probably wasn't an issue.
Exactly.
It was.
Yep, that's what I needed to hear, because here in Colorado, a lot of the places I'm hunting, it's not an issue until I get up closer to northern Colorado and up towards Wyoming and then into Wyoming. It's a different mindset. I have to kind of wrap my mind around of, okay, yeah, there's something else I need to be concerned about.
Well, there always is. And if it's not snakes, it's skunks. And if it's not skunks, it's porcupines. And skunks and porcupines have both rained hard on some hunt parades for me in the past, too. So I would definitely second both of those. But snakes, and maybe that might just be a little bit of apprehension on my personal side. They're just not the favorite thing, and well, I mean, I don't know. Snake breaking a dog is a difficult thing. We could spend a week talking about that, and I got feelings on that as well. But most people would agree that the vaccine, whether you think it's going to work all the time or not, is probably not a bad idea. It's cheap insurance, and that's kind of where I've gotten with this whole thing. But there's so much out there in Wyoming that most people never realize is available to them. We've both been surprised in that regard.
The scenery was phenomenal. Hunting was fantastic. Like I said, the people, the food, and the cost of it all is one of those things where I'm like, I don't understand why it's a question for some people. That granted, it's not South Dakota, but I've hunted South Dakota before, and I've hunted Montana, and the past few years have been incredibly surprising and pleasant for me to be able to go up there. But that was something that I got to do, because I don't get to do that with my dog here as much. I don't have a lot of pheasants around here. So to be able to go up there and know that she's going to get pheasants, she's going to get work, and we're going to have a good hunt is one of those confidence things that kind of already, takes a little bit of the question out of your mind.
Well, it's funny. That is one of the bigger concerns when I talk to people about traveling far away to hunt public access ground, for example. It turns out most of them won't admit it until later in the conversation, but most of them are kind of concerned that they're going to go to a place that has no birds, or that they won't have luck, or they won't find the right kind of cover, or there's always a feeling of dread, and you just got to do your homework a little bit. I'm talking to everybody who's listening right now. Do your homework a little bit more, and go with a little bit more confidence, and all of a sudden everything will work out. Because remember, we'd look silly if we were just walking around out there. You got a shotgun in your hands, you can walk around all day and still have a good time.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And a lot of the places that I'm hunting are walk-in access, like you say, which I don't know what all's going to happen with those type things in the future, but I hope it's a program that stays strong for as long as I can hunt it.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I mentioned your comment on that in an earlier portion of the podcast. So people are reading that stuff, and they're learning more and more, and that's the whole point. Back to your season. You mentioned snakes, and I hate to say it, but we all learned something from everybody else's misfortunes. Hopefully they're minor. But did you have any scares of any sort, whether it's with the dog or just yourselves out there? No, I have to admit, not this year. I knock on wood, everything was solid and safe. But when I go to those places, it's kind of outside of my bubble. It's outside of my little complacent, sense of
safety. So it's a new component that I have to just mentally make sure that I'm paying attention,
Yeah.
and that's all. But no, didn't have any trouble this year with any dogs, and everything went really well with all the hounds that I got to hunt with.
That early season stuff you're talking about, I'm the same way. You could, if you're lucky, you get a morning hunt in because it's so warm.
Yeah.
But where you go and where I might go, the afternoon could be waist deep in a trout stream, can it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a bad 1-2 punch if you want to upland and then fly fish. It definitely seems to fit in with a lot of like-minded people as well.
Yeah. In fact, that's another story I'll tell you some other time. If you were going to put on your guide hat for a moment, but you're my bird hunting guide right now, and you're going to tell me those kind of things that I need to prepare for if I'm going. What should I bring? What should I expect? What are the things that would make it a really good hunt for me?
Making sure hydration just for you and for your dog. Sometimes a lot of these places we might be hunting are so up high, we're away from a water source.
Yeah.
So packing along a bottle just for your dog, it could be heavy and cumbersome in your vest, but it's definitely one of those things that is going to be better for you and better for your dog.
Yeah.
Once their tongue gets out and long, that they're not really smelling so much with their nose anymore. So as long as you can keep them hydrated, that helps. Watching the weather. I mean, if it is going to be too high with the temperature, maybe plan on cutting it short or getting out a little bit earlier. A lot of our dogs, too, do like that time on the water, like you said. So those afternoons fly fishing can definitely be a cool down for all the dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there one piece of gear that you might take that we haven't thought about? I love this. I used to ask it when I was making a fly fishing TV show, and you were always surprised at what they'd pull out of their vest. So now you're my bird hunting guide. What have you got in there that we ought to carry along besides water?
It's big country.
Yeah.
And if you're following the dog, you can maybe get turned around a little bit. So some type of GPS or at least a compass in your pocket is one of those things that I'm not going to be out in the field without a compass floating around in the pocket. I'm pretty good with where we are, and I don't usually lose track, but it has happened once. And, we came out below a switchback and expecting to cut across the switchback on the road, and we just kept going and going, and we missed it. And we had to kind of just sit back and kind of retrack a little bit and pull out our compass and kind of, okay, well, you know what? I think we're a little bit more to the east here than where we cut down. So it's one of those things that, and it's so light. It's so easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of people are getting to the point where they don't rely on the compass in their reading. They're relying too much on electronics. I just my own personal 2 cents is a compass doesn't run on batteries and it's not going to break as easily as a GPS. But I do use the GPS. It helps with the OnX that they have out now with mapping.
Yeah.
That is a tremendous asset. So I have to admit that OnX has been something that I've been using more and more in the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely. And but you're right. Map and compass and the knowledge to be able to use them is critical. Yeah. And I lecture a lot on that topic. I won't bore you with that, but useful information, inspiring. I'm going to climb those hills this early season and see what I can do with those big grouse.
Right.
Any parting advice for us on the grouse hunting up in the hills there? What will we do in the way of strategy or tactics that maybe are a little different from somebody who's a quail hunter or a pheasant hunter?
Those broken edges and areas where the grouse have escape flight. The way they get away is to set to wing and to sail away and put, distance between them and hazard. And the best way they do that is usually to fly down.
Okay.
And when they set up, a lot of times I know a few hunters that will hunt along cliff edges where there's definitely a distinct drop off. And that's because it's an escape place for the birds to get away. They'll look for aspens along cliff edges, thin aspens, not thick ones, not old ones, but thin aspens. I also find them mixed around open pine trees, not the thick, tightest pines, like the dark timber, but small islands of pine trees.
Yeah.
We'll discover, we'll encounter birds in between those. Sometimes those birds do fly a short distance and then roost up into a tree again. So you do have a chance of, rediscovering a bird if one gets away.
Good advice from a guy who knows that country. Always fun to talk with you. We'll do it again soon. Michael Salamone, thank you for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast. Have a great, well, you don't have an off season. Never mind.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, Scott. Thanks for calling.
Thanks. Everybody watch for his byline. He's out there just like me. Thanks again, Michael.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And the rest of you stay put. We're just getting warmed up here at the Upland Nation podcast. We got the Fix It segment. Doing a little housekeeping there, electronic housekeeping. Our word of the week. And this month's prize in the Fur Feathers Friends promotion brought to you by Pointer Shotguns. This month's prize is Pyke Gear Dakota pants. It's all coming up after the break, as well as another guest with another take on another season. I can't wait to talk with him after this word from TrulockChokes.com. Yeah, lifetime warranty. What does that tell you about the product? Satisfaction guarantee. They may sound the same, but they're different. You don't like what that choke tube is doing for you, send it back. They'll replace it with something else. All at TrulockChokes.com. These guys make their choke tubes out of American steel right there in Wiggum, Georgia, with the tightest tolerances, the highest expectations when it comes to manufacturing and engineering. Precision made is probably the understatement, but it all puts birds in the bag. You get a choke tube that is made right. There are no holes in the pattern. No holes in the pattern means, hey, more birds in the bag. Learn more at TrulockChokes.com, TruLock, TrulockChokes.com. And have you heard about the new Pointer shotgun, the semi-automatic? It's called the FT12. It is getting rave reviews for any number of good reasons, including some of the great features. Besides Cerakoting in any number of colors, a variety of finishes, it is very affordable. In fact, the suggested retail price is just $4.99. But it is engineered for your shooting pleasure, such as that is. A rotating bolt head reduces recoil and muzzle jump, for example. Learn more about what they're doing with this new line of semi-automatic shotguns at pointershotguns.com. Well, he tells me it's been a long, long time since we last talked, so I promise we're not going to get all the way caught up. That'll take more than one discussion. But Bret Wonnacott joins me from somewhere over there in Utah, where at the moment this is recorded, he's still able to be hunting. The rest of us are just going to have to bite our tongue and be kind to him, because it's either that or we throw stuff at the podcast speaker. Bret, welcome back to the Upland Nation podcast.
No, man. Hey, thanks for having me, Scott. It's a true honor to be on here. So
you're welcome. And ditto. I mean,
Thank you.
I see your exploits once in a while. Everything from the dog work you do to the book to everything else. So I think it would be good for all of us, including me, if you just gave us a little bit of a backstory. Tell us, with an emphasis on the bird dog world. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I grew up here in northern Utah. My dad was a breeder of German short-haired pointers, and so he sort of got me involved in bird dogs when I was a young kid. And I grew up with a love for that, and my stepfather he took me waterfowling, and so I started to learn about duck hunting and stuff. And I'm only maybe 10 minutes from the shore of the Great Salt Lake, some of the best marshes, in the country. So, anyway, as I grew up, I got more and more involved in it. And in my late 20s, I started competing with a duck call. And I won some state championships eventually and went to the world championships a bunch of times. And, in that whole process, during that whole time, and I was kind of known for a duck caller, I was still running bird dogs. And I got to the point where I was getting a little bit too old to keep up with the young guys with the duck call. And so I started competing with bird dogs. And so I've been running in NASTRA trials for, 10 or 12 years probably. And I've had a great time doing it. And my passion is sharing the bird dogs with the world. I love bringing new people in, and I get to visit 4 or 5 high schools every year and chat with their FFA programs. And I take the dogs in, and we teach about the North American model of wildlife management and how our dogs fit into ethical hunting.
I'm gobsmacked at what an incredible mission you have, and that you're executing. More power to you on all of those fronts.
Thank you.
Just had a couple related discussions about stuff like that, and I just got to ask you, just for the record, the benefits to a bird hunter to going to a NASTRA trial and actually running a dog. And I got to preface that by saying, when I first got deep into this world, and some people, I apologize, have heard this story already, I said, well, I'm going to go try all of those just so that I know what I'm talking about when I talk about them. Yeah. And I went and I put my first wire hair down on the ground at a NASTRA trial. And when we were done, I looked at the board and I said, at least we're not last.
Yeah, and that's about how my first. I might have been last. I don't. but my first my enter into it, I was. I just decided I love to compete. I've always been a competitor. I played sports when I was young, and so anyway. But the NASTRA thing for me, at first I was kind of on the fence about it because, one, I got my butt kicked, which is okay. I'm used to getting my butt kicked to get to the top, right?
Yeah.
But after I learned a little bit more about it, it forces you to train to a higher level than just a natural bird dog. So I've got a year-old puppy right now. If we're out hunting and he's on point and those chukars stand up in front of him and he sees them, he's off to the races, man.
Sure.
Because that's what he hasn't had any formal work done with him yet. So, but my dogs that are broke for NASTRA, those birds stand up and walk all around them, and they'll stand and hold that point and allow me to get there and get the shot. So it does force you to train to a little higher standard, not like completely broke to wing shot and fall like a American field trial or a AKC trial, but it's more of a hunting situation. And on top of that, it helps me keep my dogs fit. So I have a reason to keep my dogs fit in the spring. In the summer, there's only a month where I don't have a trial. So I keep my dogs fit all year. And that's huge.
I love that. And it's absolutely true. And we all talk a good game about doing that anyway. But when there's a little bit of some sort of pressure out there, it's a little harder to say, not today.
Yeah. Well, if you don't do it today, it's going to show up in the trial. And if you like to compete and like to be competitive, man, work at it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just that much. It's just a reason. It's a measuring stick each time. So if I've got a young dog and I'm bringing up a young dog, and I go through hunting season and I know where he's at, and oftentimes I don't trial them until they're just a little bit older. Now I want to get them good and broke. But oftentimes you can measure your training as you're trialing. So you go to the trial and you mentally, it's much like coaching sports. You take notes of what your dog does well and what he didn't do so well. And you can go back and work on those things that maybe you were a little bit weak on until the next trial. When you go back to the next trial and the things you were weak on, maybe they're a little bit better. And some of the things that you did well on going so well. But it's just this constant measuring stick, right?
Yeah.
So it does motivate. At least it motivates me to train.
You know, there's the flip side of that as well. I tell people, you know, don't beat up yourself about where your dog allegedly is in his training evolution. And
right.
If you want a perspective, if you want to see the yardstick, go to these things and see what other dogs are doing right and wrong at the same age.
Exactly.
You may be doing great for a dog of your age and your ability levels, but you never know that, and you're always freaked out otherwise.
And even within that, I mean, all 2-year-old dogs are not created equal.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I say with these setters, especially these setter males, I don't think I have much of a bird dog until he's 4. I mean, they hunt, they do stuff, but when I got a 4-year-old setter, now I've got a bird dog. Usually.
I got a 7-year-old wire hair, and I felt that this year, well, it should be anyway, it was his best season ever. And it was not just physical maturity and not even emotional maturity. It was some things that together we did and some things that I did to him and vice versa that all came together. So and you just can't put a timeline on your dog training. Like you know, you can't say, like I just said, in 4 years, but that's in general, right? Yeah.
I mean, there's always going to be a slow one, and we always have people come out. I do a training day on Sundays oftentimes where I have quite a number of friends out and we work on all their dogs. And everybody wants, you know, to climb that step-by-step process. And in reality, it's just a bumpy, hilly road that you get on a muddy slope and slide down into the rut. And, you know, it's not a smooth road to a finished dog. At least it hasn't ever been for me.
Well, you deserve extra kibble tonight for doing that for other people. I know the feeling from, I'm looking out at my training field right now and all the people who've been in that field over the years. We may not be able to help them all that much. Maybe we can, you can, but at least they're getting one more chance to be out and interact. I had a guy come up to me a couple weeks ago at an event I was at, and he said, you know, the joy of going with a group training day is somebody there's going to have something of value to contribute to your situation.
100%.
And it may be little, it may be gigantic, it may be earth-shattering, who knows? But none of that happens if you don't go.
No, and the newest person has observations. The newest person sees things and asks questions sometimes that can really spawn thought in any of us. Yeah. And so everybody's a valuable member in a training group.
Yeah, somebody had said recently they learn more as a mentor than they ever learned as a mentee. Yeah,
I think there's something to be said for that. Yeah. For sure.
All right, so enough about that. Let's take it down to the ground level. How was your season? And give me some of the gory details.
Oh man! So here in Utah, we have bird hunting, and sometimes we have pretty good bird hunting. Yeah. But in the last few years, we've been cursed by this drought that's hit the Mountain West and a whole lot of North America, and so we haven't had a ton of birds. But boy, this year, the stars aligned and the moon was right and somebody did the right dance around the campfire and we had a hatch. And it was good for everything. So I started in September and I hunted, like I always do, I hunted dusky grouse and rough grouse, and the dusky population was really, really good. The rough grouse population was pretty good in the areas that I hunt. I heard other people say in other parts of the state it was very good, but it was not as good as other times for me. And then we got into sharptail season, and there were lots of sharptail, and there were huns. I mean, in Utah, having a hun year is like when I was in the 90s. We used to shoot a bunch of huns.
Yeah.
I shot huns this year. Chukars, there were chukars. There were chukars for days. It was really, really a good season. Maybe not my best season ever, but it was pretty good. The real shocking thing is we had a pheasant hatch, and we haven't had good pheasant hunting in many, many years. We've built houses on all the best habitat here, and we've done a really nice job of destroying everything the ringneck pheasant wants.
I know some of those places. Yeah.
Yes. This year we had a pheasant hatch, and we shot pheasants, and we had flushes of, you'd see 10 birds get up at once, which for here it's unbelievable. I haven't seen it for a long time. So it was one of those golden years, and as well as I do, you better enjoy them while they're here, because it's not always that way.
Absolutely. So the English say, if you can keep your own calendar, which means basically you can decide the days off you want, then you're way better off. I want to talk about those pheasants for a minute, because I have been on some of that ground, and I know exactly what's happening. It's happening everywhere. We know that.
It is.
But Utah pheasants, I don't know. Describe classic pheasant habitat. Where were you finding those birds?
So this now, in this day and age, we used to hunt them a lot more on agriculture, and they still exist on agriculture. Yeah. But oftentimes nowadays they're near marshes and river bottoms, and what's remaining of agriculture. In northern Utah, and even further south, it doesn't look that much different. It's just there's less of it. Yeah. And getting on land here is a real challenge. And that's really the key to hunting wild pheasants in Utah, is getting the right land access.
I bet.
I hear people all the time say there aren't any here. Mm-hmm. There are some, but getting access to that land to actually see some is the real difficulty.
I write a lot, and I talk a lot about public access, walk-in ground, et cetera, et cetera. I can't, for the life of me, I can't even remember if there is such a program in Utah.
So we have one. It's not very good. Yeah. But it's better than what we had. I'm not sure exactly when that program started. I'm trying to think back, but I don't know if you're like me, the timeline gets all messed up, and you think 5 years ago is really 10 years, anyway. Yeah,
I was caught out at that last week.
fair enough. Yeah. But anyway, since that program started, there are a few of those properties that have good access for pheasants. The problem is they're usually pretty small. Yeah. And I mean, once they've been walked through a few times, the birds just move on to the adjacent private lands, and they're going to move back and forth, but it's a tough deal trying to make a bird season, as a pheasant season, on some of those lands. Now, that being said, we do have some WMAs, some waterfowl management areas that we've got a pretty good program going with habitat development for upland birds on some of those areas. Mm-hmm. And it looks like nothing's happening until you get a magical hatch year, and then it's like, oh man, look at all the work we did. I don't know if it's so much, if the habitat, I'm sure the habitat work helps, but really it's about water here. When you get the right precipitation, you get good hatches. And so I heard that people on the WMAs were finding a few birds this year, and that's exciting. So.
Yeah. Pardon the pun, but it is a chicken and egg thing. You got to do the habitat work. Yes. And ideally, if you build it, they will come if the rain does at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's here. That's just the way it is. It's just such a dry place.
Just getting to know you a little bit better on your social media. It looks like you spend a lot of time in the Chukar Hills, which, number one, I can't believe we haven't crossed paths, but you're over there and I'm over here. But would you consider that your primary species after a grouse season kind of gets going?
Yeah, I mean, I usually start hunting chukars. It opens late September. But I usually don't start messing around with chukars until the weather cools off.
Yeah.
Just because it is so physical. Our hills, man, they're steep here. Our mountains are a lot of them. A lot of the places that I hunt are really steep, and just it's just much more pleasant to hunt when it's cooler.
Yeah.
And the snakes go to sleep.
Yeah.
And we have other birds to hunt, so I'll hunt. We can hunt. Pheasants in November. I'm usually doing that, and so usually about the time pheasant winds up, I start chasing chukars, and that's primarily what I hunt through December and January.
Yeah.
And I love to hunt chukars as much as anybody, and so, and we have a few on public lands.
Yeah. So tell me a chukar hunting story. What was the highlight of your season?
The highlight of my season. Well, this is going to be kind of anticlimactic for some people.
Yeah.
but if you're a dog person, this is kind of cool. So, I've got this year-old setter. He turned a year in October, so this was his first season. And I had him around a lot of birds, and he made a lot of mistakes, just like year-old dogs do.
Yeah.
And as the season went on, he got a little bit better, and a little bit better, and a little bit better. And I had a day where I had him out in a place where there weren't very many birds. And I kind of did that on purpose because the places I was taking him had so many birds that he didn't really get a chance to gallop. I mean, to run and search. He was almost like on point or breaking point or doing something too fast. So I took him out to this range where there aren't a lot of birds, and we hunted for, I think I had him on the ground for about an hour or something like that. And he was ranging out to 300 yards or something. And my GPS said that he was on point. And I thought, oh boy, here we go. And it was clear up on top, over the top of this ugly looking stuff. So I sweated to the top of that hill, and I got there breathing hard and stuff. And I got to the top, and he was still on point.
Yeah.
And I walked out in front of him, and a covey got up, and I killed one bird, and he retrieved that bird. And that was perfect. And that was certainly a highlight of my season.
Well, it's a highlight of mine. Thanks. That's spectacular. I love it. And it's so true.
Yes.
Would you agree, unless he had made all those mistakes beforehand, he'd have never gotten to that point?
Absolutely. They have to be allowed to make some mistakes, and you have to stay out of their head. Scott, I wish everybody could train their first dog without the aid of an e-collar, because they would learn so much. That dog would teach so much.
Give me an example of that, or take that to the next level, because I agree wholeheartedly, but what does that mean, practically speaking? So
with an e-collar, we have a lot of new handlers, especially, that want to micromanage that dog's every move. And they want him to turn when they want him to turn. And to some degree, that's okay. But I'll take you back to the story. I trained my first dog back in the early 90s, and I barely had 2 bills to rub together to buy a bag of Olroy dog food from Walmart, living in a basement apartment, you know the drill. And, but I had this Brittany puppy, and I brought him up doing my dad, like I said, was a breeder, but he was not a trainer. His idea of training was hunt wild birds and they'll turn into a bird dog. Okay. And he was surprisingly successful.
Yeah.
But I was going to coach this dog up, and anyway, I took him out, and he ran, and he got away from me, and he got out, and I used check cords a bunch, and I tried all these different things. And some worked and some didn't. And I didn't have a perfect dog when I was done. I had a dog that decided that he was willing to hunt with me, and we learned to hunt together more than anything else. And he was far from perfect. He could never win a trial.
Yeah.
But he did so many things, and he taught me so many things that, and here's one example. So he was a Brittany. And when we'd go hunt pheasants, he had a knack for finding cripples. And his method was, and this aggravated me to death until I figured out what he was doing. But you'd shoot a bird and the bird would go down running, right? We've all had it happen. And you go to the spot where the bird is and the dog takes off running. And it's like, but it went down right here. And I know I hit it hard, and anyway, I might have said some cuss words to that dog a time or two while he was out running. But what he was doing is he would find the trail that bird was taking, and then rather than follow it, he would go out around, cut it off, come back, work like a quartering pattern back, find that bird and pick it up. And it was so effective. But if I had an e-collar on him, I would have been shocking him to come back to that spot where that bird went down every single time. And so I learned a lot about just kind of letting them be dogs from him. And that's just one example. And my dogs today, we go to the dead spot. If they take off like they know something, especially the older dogs, man, I let them go for a minute. I look myself, and sometimes they come back with a rooster in their mouth. So that's just one example. Does that make sense?
You cannot hear me nodding my head energetically.
Fair enough.
But it's, it's absolutely true. And, over the years, we've all heard every line in the book, trust the dog. I used to say on TV, follow the hunter with the longest nose, all those things. And you're absolutely right. If we have a training aid in our hand, we try to outthink the expert bird finder.
Yeah.
And
especially in the heat of the moment like that, when there's passion and energy flowing and you're excited.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, good lesson, and thanks a lot for that one.
No, my pleasure.
You mentioned snakes and waiting for those guys to go to den. We don't do that here. We don't have a long enough season. We're not like you guys. But so we're out when there are snakes. But, how'd the dogs do from a health standpoint this year, and anything we can learn from all of that?
Yeah, I mean, so they went into the season in great shape. They had, I think there were 2 weeks in July where they weren't being ran 3 or 4 days a week for a couple of hours. So they went into the season in great shape. We warmed up in August. We ramped things up, and I had one little blister on one dog's pad at one point. Didn't even stop him from hunting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else. The puppy, he did blow his pads a couple of times just because he's just not mature and he just wasn't to the level of fitness that the older dogs were.
Yeah.
So their pads were hard from running on gravel and dirt and in the mountains, and they were fit and they looked good. We didn't have anything like that. I did have one snake encounter, but I encountered it, not the dog. And they've been snake broke. They've gone through snake breaking. Because we do have snakes in other places. It's just, I feel like, especially certain ranges that I hunt on have more snakes than others. But I didn't have any problems at all. And that's not all that usual, is it?
I'm knocking wood silently because I would say the same thing. I think part of it is pure dumb luck. Part of it is, like you said, conditioning dogs in various ways that they are less likely, and then a smarter dog does fewer dumb things, and so like your 1-year-old having an issue, not surprising, but I'm glad it went well. And you mentioned running your dogs all summer, every 3 or 4 days a week. Are you actually roading them, or they're just getting out to run for a while? You said 2 hours. I love that idea. For me, that would require an internal combustion engine.
Well, I use it as a fitness exercise for myself too.
Sure.
So I go for a walk. We have a public training area here, and it's not very big. So I'm basically, it's boring. So I'm basically walking circles for a couple hours in the summer, and there's no snakes there or anything. It's fairly safe that way. There is some cheap grass that becomes a bit of an issue with the grass-ons and things, and you have to really keep on your toes. Yeah. But no, I actually physically run them. Going into August, I have access to a couple of pieces of property that are just, like CRP, and I start running them there. And I'm fortunate in that I work a job, I only work 4 days a week, and I work early in the morning and I'm off early in the afternoon. And so it's fairly easy for me to get dogs out, even though I have to drive a ways to do it now. But,
well, good for you. You are lucky. But you're also telling us that there are no excuses. I don't know. I'd come up with a few if you need some. No.
I mean, we have families and we have children, some of us, and some, it's everybody's got a life on top of it all. So we all do the best we can with what we have. Now, you're running wire hairs, aren't you?
Just
Scott?
One singular wire.
Just one.
Hair.
Oh, you've just got wire hair.
Yeah,
very good. They're such great dogs.
Oh, I love them. I'm on my fifth one, and
are you really? Very cool.
I used to think I just keep getting better and better dogs. No, I'm a slightly better trainer than I was 5 dogs ago.
Yeah.
And yes, thank you, Jeff Funky, Three Devils Kennels. He gives me good dogs. But I've learned a thing or two in the last few years.
Yeah. And have you been in this all your life?
No.
No, you got into it older.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm probably the poster boy for what they now call adult onset hunters.
Oh, no kidding.
I was one before there was a name for it.
Yeah. And I help a lot of those people. What was that like, getting into it? Did you have a friend? You must have had a friend or something.
No, I mean, it's just like fly fishing. I just saw it and I thought it was pretty cool. But with the dogs, it was different. She wanted a dog.
Yeah.
She begrudgingly let me pick the dog. So I'm downtown, and in the back of a pickup is the ugliest animal I've ever seen. I don't care. I mean, warthog, silverback gorilla, it doesn't matter. No, he was uglier than all of them put together.
Wow.
I said, that's what I want. She says, pull over. So we pull over. About the time we get out of the truck, here comes her long-lost sorority sister.
Oh, boy.
She reaches for the handle of the door on the truck.
Yeah.
Woo!
Wow.
Old home week, hugs, kisses, secret handshake.
Yeah, sure.
And the dog's pregnant.
Oh, wow.
So we take a puppy home a few weeks later, and it's running through this field across from our house. We lived in a kind of a country place. And he's going back and forth. Then he stops. And one foot comes up, and the tail points towards the sky, and
cool.
There goes a hen pheasant. So I bought a shotgun the next day.
Very cool, and that's the short version of.
Oh God! Well,
the rest is history.
Yeah, exactly. Because now look at me. But anyway,
right?
It's dogs.
Yeah,
dogs.
But that's an inspiration though, because.
Yeah. But enough about me. Back to you, Bret Wonnacott.
Very good.
You've done all the things that a lot of us wish we could do, including a lot of hunting. If you were to give us one more bit of advice on dogs, bird hunting, something that will help us on opening day next year that you've learned maybe the hard way. That's how I learned everything. What kind of advice would you give us? Well,
2 things, I think. And they're both involved with training and work, something no one wants to do, right?
Yeah.
The first one is practice with your shotgun.
Uh-huh.
I've got some young people I hunt with, and he's been working his dog all year, and that's the other one is keep that dog tuned up and spend some time with him. The more time you spend with that dog, the better it's going to be. But when you spent that time and you get out there and the dog does right and you walk in and birds fly and you're shooting blanks, or maybe you're just missing, it takes a little bit out of it. But if you can go in and at least make some of your shots so that dog's rewarded and you get the completion of the team task, right? That just brings so much. I've got a couple of young friends, and I don't want to pull them out by name because they'll probably hear this, but one of them, he trained his dog. Dog's beautiful. He's got a setter that's out of this just gorgeous setter. I've got dog envy. And that dog pointed and pointed and pointed, and he missed and missed and missed. Oh man, I don't know how much it really means to the dog. Maybe it's more a people thing, but I always feel like it means something to the dog to get that bird in his mouth.
There's no doubt about it. No, yeah, I mean, depending on who you talk to, it's either finding the bird or carrying the bird. It doesn't matter which. I'll never forget the first time I took a lesson from a guy whose son was an Olympic skeet shooter.
Oh, wow.
And he learned everything he learned from his father. This guy was a master teacher, but he makes you fill out a form before you take the lesson. And he says, and the form has a question, why do you want to learn to shoot better? And I wrote, and I'd never thought about it before, so that I don't disappoint the dog.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. We do all of this. We work hard at it. It's the least we can do is learn to be a better shooter. And then
it's our part. It's our part in the game, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're right. It's the other half of the bargain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So.
Well, there you go.
Anyway.
We'll do this again because this is fun.
Cool.
I'm about out of time, but we're just getting started. So, Bret Wonnacott, I promise you I'll call you back again. We'll do this some more. In the meantime, glad you had a good season. It sounds like that young one's on the way. More power to both of you. Thanks so much for being a part of the Upland Nation podcast.
My pleasure, Scott. Hey, thanks for having me on. It's been a good time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Not for you. No bye-bye quite yet. We still have the Fix It segment. I'm going to do a little housekeeping with you, walk you through a few things that I'm doing this time of year. Right after this word from MidwayUSA.com. Yeah, I ordered a bunch of stuff last night. I got a text this morning. It's already on the way. These guys are fast. If you've seen the facility, you know what I mean. Unbelievable. Automation +1. And that means when you make an order, you need something fast, it's going to get there. If you order before 3 p.m. any given day, that order is on the truck and out the door that very same day. Clothing ships free if you buy over $99 worth, and who doesn't? Sign up for emails or text messaging and you'll get 10% off your next order. Yeah, satisfaction and engagement with you is the number one goal of MidwayUSA.com. And HiVizSites.com helps you see what you've been missing. I know it's kind of a trick line, but it's absolutely true. It hit me one day when I finally figured out that you got to look at two things when you're shooting. You got to look at the target fully, but your mind's eye needs to also see where the muzzle is, or else there's no correlation. That's what a HiViz sight does. Those patented interlocking light pipes allow you to quickly and easily see the bird, and while your subconscious is seeing the muzzle. You'll see what I mean when you watch the video at HiVizSites.com, HiViz sites.com. Tell them I sent you. Well, this week we're not really fixing it. Well, we're fixing our look at our bird hunting world. That's what we're doing on Fix It. I cannot just sit there and listen to music or even watch television. I've got the laptop going all the time, and most of the time I'm dreaming while I'm on one of my online mapping apps. Places I've been or that maybe I need to go to, both. But for the ones that I've been, I will make notes. Of course, I'm marking those places where I found birds. But I've got a lot of other marks on there, and I use the Sasquatch icon to mark those. and I'm going to pull some of those off. I'm going to clean up my online maps. Make sure that the losing places are truly that and they get off the map. I'll find some other spots that I do want to explore next year while I'm doing that. And even the spots where I know there are birds, I will go deeper into that app and I'll make some notes about what I found and how I did. Information is power. It's your time of year to kind of clean up all of that and create a better source of information for next season. That's our Fix It segment this week. And now it's time for our Fur Feathers Friends Word of the Week. Yeah, the grand prize at the end of May, early June, will be a 4-pack of pointer shotguns. Over and under or side by side, your choice in all 4 of the popular gauges and calibers. But we also have a monthly prize. And this month the prize is a pair of Pyke Gear Dakota pants valued at $230. And boy, are they nice. All you got to do is know the word of the week. Go to furfeathersfriends.com, scroll down, enter the contest, fill out the form, and tell me what the word of the week is. And for this week, it is quail. The word of the week is quail. Good luck, enter often, and make sure when I ask you in the entry form that you tell me who you're taking hunting next at furfeathersfriends.com. Well, thank you, Michael Salamone and Bret Wonnacott, for giving us a rundown on your seasons and some of the wonderful things that you did and had done to you. If you all listening will tell one friend about the Upland Nation podcast, I'd be most grateful. Or leave a rating or a review at Apple Podcasts. All of that helps us grow. And thank you to our sponsors who help us make it all possible for you listeners. Purina Pro Plan Sport Dog Food, Mid-Valley Clays and Shooting School, TrulockChokes, MidwayUSA.com, Pointer Shotguns, and HiViz Shooting Systems. Hey, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have a podcast. Oh, we would, but nobody would care. I care about helping you, and I appreciate your help as well. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening to the Upland Nation podcast.